This is another big win for my movie watching dreams. Yes, I just watched Taxi Driver for the very first time in 35mm at the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood, California, and this is my reaction video. Hi, my name is Emily or La Movie Mija. I'm a part-time filmmaker, full-time movie lover, and today I am reacting to the 1976 psychological thriller Taxi Driver. And let me tell you, this movie is not what I expected. Let's get into it. Suffering from insomnia, disturbed loner Travis Bickle takes a job as a New York City cabbie, haunting the streets nightly, growing increasingly detached from reality as he dreams of cleaning up the filthy city. When Travis meets pretty campaign worker Betsy, he becomes obsessed with the idea of saving the world, first plotting to assassinate a presidential candidate, then directing his attention toward rescuing 12-year-old prostitute Iris. The film is directed by Martin Scorsese and written by Paul Schrader, and it stars Robert De Niro, Jodie Foster, Cybill Shepherd, Albert Brooks, Peter Boyle, and Harvey Keitel. The first thing I need to talk about, one of the first big punches to the face that you have with this movie, is the score. The music was absolutely phenomenal. Like, it's somewhere between a dream and a nightmare. Like, the jazz riffs just kind of take you off, and they complement the neon city lights as Robert De Niro is driving around New York City so well. This movie put me in a trance, and a big part of that is definitely the visuals, but absolutely the music. And then once you are nice and calm in that trance-like state, they have these big cymbal crashes, and it just shakes you back awake, and it just gives you this uneasy feeling throughout the entire film. As far as this movie being a psychological thriller, I definitely didn't even know that part going in, but the first 60 seconds of this movie made it very clear that we were not going to be soothed. This is not going to be an easy movie watching experience, but it definitely went down so smoothly. I don't know much about the composer Bernard Herrmann, but I do know that he also scored Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, which I also watched for the very first time not too long ago. And just the imprint that this man has had in cinematic scores and what he's able to do to communicate that absolute terror is just beyond me. What also contributes to the idea of this feeling very much like a dream is, again, those lights passing by, the glares, the reflection, the editing of this film too. There were some moments that were jerky and it looked like things were duplicating, or like we were seeing things happen again, or lines were being repeated. There were definitely moments where it entered the realm of surreal. But I always felt like this movie was on this man's back. So Travis Bickle, played by Robert De Niro, young Robert De Niro. I didn't know he had this in him like this. My biggest touch point with Robert De Niro growing up was Meet the Parents, and knowing that this is other people's biggest touch point with him, it must have been really weird seeing him, telling Greg that he has nipples and he can milk him. But in this movie, Travis Bickle, you get a real sense of that loneliness, that lack of community, that idea of being in that intense solitude where he is desperately wanting to be part of society. He's wanting to talk to girls. The girl at the place where he goes watch nudie films doesn't even want to give him the time of day, not even bother with a glance up to meet his eyes. Seeing all the different ways he's trying to attempt to make some sort of connection and continually fails tells me that he wants to be a part of the city that he simultaneously chastises for its dirt and its filth. We see that not only in a very literal sense with like the trash and the litter on the floor, but we also see that in the way that the camera shows us the things that bother Travis, because we're very much in his brain, this movie. We're getting the narrative voiceover, we're getting his diary entries, we're getting his point of view, and you can see how agitated he gets when he witnesses crime being committed on the streets. You can even see it in the layer of racism that's very blatant throughout the film, and you interpret Travis's discomfort and his uneasiness anytime a Black character exists around him. And while this is definitely a psychological thriller and there are some hellish elements as we go through the madness that Travis Bickle descends into, I definitely found this movie to be incredibly comedic. There was a lot of humor throughout the film, and I felt it not just in the way that Cybill Shepherd's character Betsy was portrayed. I really appreciated the portrayal of women throughout this film, side note. But you can also see it in the way that the camera is like poking fun at Travis Bickle throughout this film. One of the most jarring scenes is after this man decides to take Betsy to a nudie film, sign number one that this man is absolutely out of touch with reality altogether. He's desperately trying to call her back, send her flowers, get her to call him back. Like, he's on the phone constantly begging for Betsy's attention, and Betsy's not having any of it. But that snarky camera, there's a scene where Travis is desperately calling Betsy back. He is desperate to get her to return his calls, and the camera has him in frame, and we're looking at him, give his declaring act of desperation, trying to get Betsy back. And as he's trying to beg her to give him another chance, the camera slowly pans away down the hallway. And the shady cameraman strikes again. Seeing that move from him in focus to it looking down the hallway as the phone conversation continued on, it was such a dig at Travis. It was such a camera dig at Travis, because every other scene in this movie has been to communicate Travis's point of view. But at that moment, the camera looks away completely to be like, this is so embarrassing. We can't even stomach putting you through this moment that Travis is going through. The embarrassment. Another instance I really felt that there was a judgment coming from the camera or from the perspective that we're given is after the giant ending where we see the massacre unfolded from the top down. That top down view was so violent, so bloody, so messy in the aftermath of the violence that Travis just carried out in the name of saving Iris. But because it's from a high above angle looking down, it gave me the sense of look at the horrific mess this man made. Look at this awful act he committed. Look at the aftermath of these terrible ideas that he enacted. So come to my surprise, this movie has a happy ending for this man. I mean... But I'm getting ahead of myself because I haven't really dug into the story. And the story itself, I found completely fascinating. This idea that you have an anti-hero who is slowly devolving into madness. And through a 2025 lens, watching this now in this year, it's really easy to kind of see the signs that are there. You see... just how he's unable to access sleep. He's unable to relax. He doesn't have any friends. He doesn't know how to talk to women. When he is rejected by women, he finds a way to kind of display his macho masculinity to them. With, Betsy, it's like him trying to assassinate her boss. And then with Iris, he wants to liberate her from sport. So you have all of the telltale signs that this man is unwell and that this man is not a hero. However, because we frame the story around him and we are with him, it's easy to understand how some people can start to empathize with him. And I think that's part of the allure and the trick of this movie is this idea that we are so conditioned to praise these acts of violence when there's a certain narrative that gets wrapped around them. And I'm not sure how this movie was received initially, if it felt as anti-war and feminist and anti-macho masculinity, toxic masculinity at the time. But it definitely feels like all of those things now. Travis is a veteran and he gets praised as a veteran, as a hero, but he doesn't know how to live in a world after the Vietnam War. He doesn't know how to integrate back into society or humanity, really. The lack of sleeping, the lack of access to nutrition, he deprives himself of nutrition. He is over here praising all of these prophetic ideas. I mean, pseudo-prophetic. They're not actually anything worthwhile that he's proclaiming in his diary, but he's laying it all out there and he's saying that he treats his body like a temple, that he is so much better than the filth on the New York City streets. But here he is living a half-life completely alone and binging on the most terrible food. To me, that was this disillusionment of American society that he was portraying. It seems like he also frequented the nudie picture house. And in conjunction, I can see that as, an extension of him over consuming sugar, him watching so much porn, and the deconstruction of society is actually the decay within him. He is the part of society that he hates the most. It's all a projection of the lack of integrity that he has in his own life, that the life he leads is very unnatural. And one of the most iconic scenes that alludes to that disillusionment with American society and this idea of toxic masculinity or the portrayal of masculinity and how that can lead to toxic behavior is Travis Bickle alone in his room practicing brandishing his weapons, like through all the different holsters and springs that he created to optimize the most showmanship. It didn't seem like he was choosing things that were particularly stealthy or particularly necessary for the job he was trying to do, you know, the attempt on Palentine's life. But seeing that action in the context of him doing it over and over and over again and trying to get it right, even practicing the lines, "You talking to me? You talking to me?" I didn't know that that line was comedy gold. I giggled watching that for the very first time within the context that it actually exists in, because this man, he is practicing brandishing his weapons in the same way that someone would practice talking to a girl at a bar or someone practicing a TikTok dance. The repetitive nature of that scene and the way that the camera displays it all is another big clue that this movie is subjecting you to what's inside Travis's mind, but it's not actually commending it. Because if Travis has to go mad to be embraced by society, what does this movie have to say about society itself? I cannot wrap up my reaction to this movie without talking about the women in this movie. I was so drawn to the way that these women were written in this movie, and I was really compelled by just how well-rounded they were. Knowing how meticulous Martin Scorsese is, and I don't think anything in this film is by accident, so the fact that there are two main female characters that Travis Bickle is trying to impress or save, I think is really intentional. And they're diametrically opposed representations of women. You have Betsy, who is angelic, she's aspirational, she's very funny, she's a little daring, and I like that they gave her those character traits because it made sense why she would give someone like Travis a chance. Yeah, he's a little risque, yeah, he's a little like disheveled, but she seems like someone who would do it for the plot, someone who would entertain the idea just to see where it goes, and she could take care of herself. So it made sense to me why she would allow herself to go on this date. She's also aspirational in her career choice, like she is working for a political candidate. So there's a level of status on display there that Travis would, be naturally attracted to. And then you have Iris, who is a literal child. She's probably half the age of Betsy. And even though she's like very hardened and mature from the life that she leads, working for sport, she is still a child. And then part of me wants to think that maybe she is more susceptible to what Travis can offer her, even though she can very much hold her own. She is very smart. But similar to a character like Honora, who is in a similar situation in which she finds herself being offered more than she could have imagined for herself. Comparing the way that Iris reacts to Travis and his offers to how Betsy reacts to Travis and his offers, it seems like he doesn't have the intellectual match to be with a woman his own age. And so he sets out to then liberate a much younger woman who will believe the things that he says. I can't lie, I really thought this movie was going to end with everybody being exterminated. I thought that Travis was not going to live to see the end of this movie. So I was very much caught off guard to see that he has a very happy ending. Part of me wants to think that this is a dream sequence because it would be repulsive to think that society would embrace him for committing such gruesome acts. But when I put into context the time that this movie was made, it feels like there was an urge to comment on that disillusionment with Americana, knowing that the Vietnam War was televised in a way that revealed so many awful truths about the actions of American troops. And then knowing that Travis himself is a veteran, it makes it so freaking heavy to think that this is exactly what would happen in this scenario. That Travis, as a veteran, only knows a world in which he is rewarded for enacting acts of violence. And it's a very hard pill to swallow, but damn, this movie is still so relevant. And there you have it. That is my reaction to Taxi Driver. I am so grateful that I got to watch this in theaters and just go onto that dreamy trip of a film with that incredible sound system that they have at the Egyptian. Definitely check out AmericanCinematheque.com if you want to check out revival screenings in Los Angeles. There are so many offerings and I just really love that organization. Now I'm off to make this movie and the soundtrack my entire personality, so please aid me in doing so by dropping your favorite links to other video essays or traditional essays or interviews with the different filmmakers, anything about this movie. Please drop it in the comments below. And as always, like and follow me at Movie Mija for more movie news, reviews. I post here at least once time a week, most of the time. And if you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. I genuinely just have a passion for film and I work in the industry. I also aspire to create in the industry and I just love watching movies and I really enjoy the act of going to the movie theaters. So if you want more videos from me, make sure to subscribe to my channel and you can follow me at Movie Mija anywhere. All right, that is all for now. Thank you so much again for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.